What the heck is going on, football fans? DF Stu here, and I'm going to be bringing you my Week 9 DraftKings That's My Guy video today. In this video, I'll be targeting one player from each position that I think is either in a very good spot price-wise, value-wise, or just simply could have a great smash week this week. In last week's video, 3 of my 5 guys actually ended up in the winning roster for my $3 contest. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I gotta give you the YouTube spiel, the subscriptions, the likes, the comments, they go a long way to help me grow my channel. As always, before building any lineups, I really want to get a good idea of what Vegas thinks will happen this week in football. Right away, this Seattle and Buffalo game's jumping out to me with an over-under set at 55. As I scroll down, I'm noticing the Detroit-Minnesota game set at 54.5. I'm noticing the Carolina Chiefs game set at 50.5. The Houston-Jacksonville game, that's set at 55.5. And our Las Vegas Chargers game set at 55. Okay, now that we have a good idea of which games should produce the most amount of points, I'm going to go ahead and select my quarterback. This week at quarterback, we're going to go with another rookie, Justin Herbert. Although Justin Herbert is the 7th highest price quarterback this week, only 100 less than Lamar Jackson, I still believe he presents great value. Ever since he burst onto the scene in week 2, he has had nothing but great games. He is hitting close to 300 yards or going above 300 yards in almost every one of his games. He's completing multiple touchdown passes in every game. Sorry, except for his first 2 games. And he also has the rushing upside. Anytime a quarterback can get me a couple extra rushing yards or maybe even a rushing touchdown, that's just icing on the cake. I am firing up Justin Herbert with full confidence this week against a weak Las Vegas defense. When building a DraftKings lineup, I almost always want to include at least one or more pass catcher on the same offense as my quarterback. Sometimes I'll make exceptions to this rule if I feel good about maybe a Lamar Jackson week, maybe a Cam Newton week, or maybe even a Kyler Murray week. Basically just the quarterbacks that have high rushing upside and maybe don't have to throw a lot of passes to still put up a good fantasy week. For this video, I'm going to be pairing Justin Herbert up with his tight end, Hunter Henry. The thing that intrigues me the most about Hunter Henry is that he is consistently getting targets in every single game. 8 targets, 8 targets, 7 targets, 4 targets, 8 targets, 7 targets, 4 targets. The floor for Hunter Henry is there. The problem with Hunter Henry is that he just simply hasn't been able to find the end zone. He only found the end zone one time, which was in week 5. At a DraftKings price of only $4,000, I'm comfortable with taking the gamble that Hunter Henry will find the end zone this week. For our next guy, I want to scroll all the way down in the running back category to 5,000 and find myself some DAndre Swift. DAndre Swift put up an absolute stinker of a fantasy game last week against the Colts. I think this is partially due to the fact that the Colts simply have a pretty good defense, and Detroit was playing from behind for most of the game, so they had to pass the ball a lot more. One good thing to note, though, is DAndre Swift actually had his highest snap percentage of the season with 60% of the snaps. DAndre Swift showed us exactly what he was capable of in week 6 against Jacksonville, where he put up 30.3 fantasy points. I'm going to try to chase that again this week, and hopefully a week that people are going to fade him after his crappy game last week. I believe Swift's price of only $5,000 against a pretty stingy Minnesota defense is going to allow us to open up some more possibilities at other positions. For my next pick, I want to move to the other side of the ball in that Detroit-Minnesota game, and I want to go with the rookie Justin Jefferson. We talked a little bit about Justin Jefferson in our Thursday video. Looking back at his games, we see that massive game against Atlanta, that massive game against Tennessee. His week against Houston was also okay. But the thing that's really drawing me to Justin Jefferson this week is that I think a ton of people are going to be in on Dalvin Cook. After Dalvin Cook showed what he could do last week, it makes sense to be in on him again this week. But I think that since there's going to be a lot of people in on Dalvin Cook, this could be a very good way to kind of mix things up a little bit. If you're not a fan of targeting Swift and Jefferson in the Detroit and Minnesota game, I would suggest that maybe you'd like going with perhaps Dalvin Cook on one end and maybe Marvin Jones coming back on the Detroit end. Taking a look at defense, we see Pittsburgh's elite defense right at the top, as expected against a very weak Dallas offense now with their third string quarterback. But at the price of $4,900, there is no way I'm touching them. Instead, I'm going to scroll all the way down, and I'm going to go with the Falcons against Denver this week as my defense. The Falcons' defense hasn't been amazing by any means at all, but I think that at the low price of $2,500 going against Drew Lock, who might be one of the worst quarterbacks in the league, they could force him to throw a couple picks in this one. But really, I just like the savings that the $2,500 defense is going to present me with. All right, that wraps it up for my That's My Guy picks this week. I'm going to go with Herbert, Swift, Jefferson, Henry, and the Falcons defense. We're going to be left with $25,500 to round this lineup out, which is going to allow us to pick some pretty good players that are going to be left on this slate. I especially want to target that Buffalo and Seattle game with those remaining picks. Hint, hint. In Thursday's video, I want to do something a little bit different. Instead of just presenting one lineup option with my 5 guys, I want to go with maybe 2 or 3 different variations that we could take this, since there's going to be so many, projected to be high-scoring games this week. If you've got a player that you'd like to see fit into this lineup, leave me a comment below and I'll try to build that lineup for you. Well, that just about wraps things up for me today. I hope you learned something about building rosters in DraftKings and searching for value in different spots. If you like this video, feel free to hit that like button. If you really like this video, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a thing. Until next time, DF Stu out.